One of the most exciting things about art is that it can be made with just about anything. Over the centuries, artists have experimented with a wide range of different materials to create their works of art, and one that's become very popular in recent decades is resin. In skilled hands, it can be used to create a variety of strange effects, from meaningful works to some of the most abstract and conceptual pieces you'll ever see. Let's take a look at 15 incredible resin art installations. Number 15. Samsara. Isana Yamada is a Japanese artist who's become well known in recent years because of his resin artworks. But it was the installation he displayed in 2016 as part of his graduation project for his master's degree in design that put him on the world stage. On the face of it, it's 6 resin whales arranged in an arcing circle, but the closer you look, the more you begin to see the deeper meaning. Each one represents one of the 6 realms from Buddhist cosmology: the heavenly realm, the asura, the animal realm, hell, the ghost realm, and the human realm. Titled Samsara, which is the word that describes the cycle of death and rebirth, each of the whales contains an entire world that speaks to a stage on the path to reincarnation. There are ships, clouds, trees, and even volcanoes suspended in the transparent resin. And when you view it as intended from the center of the circle that the whales form, it's impossible not to take a moment of contemplation and consider where you currently are on the path to enlightenment. Number 14. Resin Towers. Various venues around the world organize annual outdoor exhibitions set against a backdrop of stunning grounds that give visitors the chance to walk through nature and appreciate the art installations that catch their eye as they pass by. The Clark Institute, which is a museum in Williamstown, Massachusetts, has become known for its program of summer exhibitions, and in 2021 invited renowned resin artist Ava Lewitt to display some works. Based in New York, Lewitt created her series of resin towers by collecting pieces of brightly colored plastic and suspending them in layer upon layer of transparent resin. The oranges, yellows, and blues are arranged in such a way that they appear to form expanding and contracting spheres, depending on whether you're approaching them or moving further away. And the pieces also change and adapt in line with the particular conditions you happen to be viewing them in, with ever-changing nature around them, from the light levels to the movement of the grass. According to the museum, the pieces celebrate the purity of hue against an ever-shifting landscape, and it's arguably something that could have only been possible by using resin as a medium. Scheduled to remain in place until late October of 2021, the towers have already proven to be so popular that other venues across the country are vying to be the next ones able to put them on display. Number 13. Resonate. The worldwide pandemic that happened in 2020 forced a lot of us to reevaluate our priorities in life and attempt projects that we wouldn't have had time for before. And in the art world, this has meant that there have been a number of incredible collaborations, such as the one between 2 Canadian artists, Judith Debrizet and Cherie Maisonneuve. Despite having developed a love of using resin as a material independently, they combined efforts, and with a 40-year age gap between the two, brought wildly different philosophies and techniques to the table. Debrizet's technique involved applying epoxy resin to glass, using people, places, and climate change as an inspiration, while Maisonneuve, whose background as a mixed media artist, focused more on creating texture with resin and is inspired by ocean waves and calmness. The collaboration led in May of 2021 to an exhibition at the Kenney Art Gallery in British Columbia, Canada, where a number of their works were put on display. Although born of different approaches, their pieces undoubtedly complement each other to help create a sense of peace, relaxation, and contemplation. Number 12. Annalu's Liquid World. The thing that truly sets a world-class artist apart from a hobbyist is their ability to take a material like resin and use it to create pieces that you'd almost think to be impossible. Resin is, of course, a viscous liquid when being worked with that eventually solidifies, but this gave Italian artist Annalu Barreto an idea. She could use it to create the sense of fluid motion. It's probably not a surprise that someone based in Venice is so mesmerized by the flow of water, and in her Liquidity series, she's created a number of pieces that give the illusion that they're alive or are in a perpetual state of motion. From flowers where the leaves look like they're draining away to books that are overflowing and bulging at their seams, each work has been meticulously planned and crafted to create an effect far beyond what most people would believe is possible to do with resin. Furthermore, her choice of color is sublime, with mild pastels and the occasional hint of vivid hues, which also makes them feel like they're three-dimensional watercolor paintings. The liquid splashes themselves are chaotic, but also seem calm because of the way they're suspended in time, and give viewers a unique way to contemplate liquid without constantly changing. Unsurprisingly, Annalu's works are in high demand and are often on display at various galleries around the world, and it's artists like her that are really pushing the medium in new directions. Number 11. Freiberg School. Not only can resin be used to create any shape or form the artist can imagine, but it's also very durable once it's cured, and this means it's possible to use it to create large works that countless people are able to walk over without it breaking. In 2016, the Museum für Neue Kunst in Freiburg, Germany, revealed the latest exhibition, which was an interactive piece created by local artist Peter Zimmermann. More known for his paintings, he had been developing his idea for floor pieces for a number of years, but this one, known as the Freiberg School, was by far the biggest. He covered the floors of the gallery with resin of all kinds of color, from bright blue to pink and peach. The result was a swirling color lagoon beneath the feet of everyone who set foot inside. In a way, by doing this, he turns the unused real estate of a gallery, the floor, into an exhibition space too, and it makes each room feel far more immersive as a result. One of the things the artist finds most interesting about a work like this is its ever-changing nature. While the resin, which covers an area of 1,400 square feet, is tough and resilient, it's still vulnerable to the scratches and scuffs as people walk over, and in his mind, this is akin to the brushstrokes seen on oil paintings. Number 10. Mitch Gobel's abstract art pieces. Mitch Gobel is an Australian resin artist who first began experimenting with the medium in 2012 and has since developed a unique abstract style that's born out of his outlook on the world. As he grew up, he had two passions, art and wildlife, and he's managed to combine the two now that he's become a successful artist by using his works to highlight environmental concerns, and he even donates large percentages of his sales to charitable organizations. He describes the creation of his pieces as being a spiritual process whereby he connects with his heart to form a representation of his inner state, and that while he has an overarching idea of how he wants a work to look, he feels an important step is to let the art be its own creation too. That's why resin became such a great material, because even if he pours it in a specific way, the colors will always interact in an unpredictable way and will naturally form unintended patterns. With pieces so often exhibited around Australia and the rest of the world, he's also created custom designs for Greenpeace, a marine conservation organization called Sea Shepherd, and has launched his own nonprofit called MGRA Wildlife and Habitat Conservation, which is entirely funded by the sales of his art. Number 9. Psychogeographies. Dustin Yellen from Brooklyn, New York uses resin in a way that most people will be familiar with, but has taken it to the next level to create a series of exhibitions and art installations that are like no other. Crafters who use resin will often use a transparent coating to seemingly suspend objects in midair, but while you probably have seen this on a small level, Yellen goes big with everything he does. Perhaps his most successful exhibition is known as Psychogeographies, which can currently be seen at the New York City Ballet Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts and on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. Made up of a series of objects, shapes, and structures that are held in transparent resin in a similar way to insects caught in amber. Explained by the artist as being a network of picture puzzle allegories that link our mind and bodies to the world metonymically and back again, each observer will see the combination of objects in a slightly different way and as a result gain their own unique interpretation of each piece. They've been described as a modern version of the Terracotta Army, although while those clay figures were created to serve their leader in the afterlife, the Psychogeographies pieces instead encourage viewers to connect with their own sense of consciousness and tap into the idea of a collective state of mind. Number 8. Age of Resin. Artists tap into their life experiences for inspiration for the pieces they create, and in the case of Miercy Briansky, what may seem like a colorful and quirky style actually has a darker, deeper meaning behind it. The New York-based artist began his career creating realistic works, but soon transitioned into abstract themes and found resin a great way to express his thoughts. Rather than using it to create smooth surfaces, he applies it in different stages along with acrylic paint, oil paint, and wood to form a range of textures that, when displayed, catch light in spectacular ways. His first solo show in New York, titled Age of Resin, went on display in 2020 during the height of the pandemic restrictions, which meant that most visitors had to enjoy the pieces through the computer screen rather than being there in real life. But there's something about his constructs that work no matter how you're viewing them. This represented the artist's return to painting after a fire ravaged his studio and destroyed a huge body of his work, and a sense of pain, loss, and desperation certainly comes through in pieces like Koi in the Pond and the standout piece titled Watermelon. It's made up of cartoon characters on a backdrop of softer hues and outlined patterns. This is an example of using resin like paint rather than to suspend an object in place, and it really helps to accent the vibrant pop art style of the artist in a way that ensures it remains as bold and vivid as the day it left his studio. Number 7. Slide samples. Rosha Yagmai, who graduated from the California Institute of Art, began her career by working with photographs, which she would manipulate to bring to life from 2D world to 3D sculptures, but soon started to experiment with other techniques while retaining the snapshot nature of a photo. A common theme through her works is her commentary on the deteriorating nature and trashiness of Los Angeles and California, particularly from the perspective of being the daughter of an Iranian immigrant in the States, and this led to the creation of a series of pieces called slide samples. Each one incorporates photos, traditional materials such as clay and metal, as well as less conventional materials like newspapers, cleaning supplies, tiles, and human hair, and uses resin to hold them in place to create what looks like a set of microscope slides that have been prepared and are waiting to be looked at. Visitors can walk up and closely inspect the elements in each slide, which are meant to engender a sense of estrangement or foreignness because of their familiarity, but at the same time, their position in unusual surroundings. But what's really incredible is the way that the careful lighting in the rooms where they're displayed also projects the colors and images onto the surrounding walls. Each one of these is a highly personal piece to the artist, incorporating family photographs and personal objects. It really conveys the sense of struggle she experienced as she grew up, along with the opportunity she's had to pursue her passions in life. Number 6. Resin mushroom lamps. Resin art installations tend to be large works that become the focal points of the rooms they're displayed in, but in many ways it's the intricate, smaller pieces that are more impressive because of the level of detail and skill that's required to create them. Japanese artist Yukio Takano has become a master of this and has become renowned for his unique lighting installations that are designed to look like mushrooms growing from a variety of different things. Made from colored resin with LEDs placed inside as a light source, Takano first revealed one of his designs in public in 2004, and since then they've been bought much faster than he can make them. Far from making something that is mushroom-like, the real genius behind these pieces is the meticulous research that goes into each one. Takano accesses detailed drawings of mushroom species from around the world, along with the details like where they're most likely to grow, and designs a piece with all of this in mind. This makes them as true to nature as possible, and it's this obsessive approach that's enabled him to create such incredible artworks. Unfortunately, because he uses delicate materials in the process, the mushroom lamps aren't suited to international transport, so they're only available to customers who live locally to him in Japan. Number 5. Mass. Ron Muick is a famous Australian sculptor who's based in the United Kingdom and has become known for his pieces that are a great example of hyper-realism, while at the same time exploring deep and personal subjects, such as unspoken thoughts and feelings. Across all of his works, there's a real sense of vulnerability, with a focus on minute details of the human body and a love of playing with scale to draw a viewer's attention to certain places. And in 2017, he not only revealed his largest ever installation, but also his most thought-provoking. Called Mass, it went on display at the National Gallery of Victoria in Melbourne, Australia, and is made up of 100 bright white human skulls that each had been made with fiberglass and resin. Rather than being life-size and keeping with his preferred style, each of the skulls was 3 feet or a meter tall when stood upright. But they were all arranged and scattered around the gallery in an intentionally haphazard way. In some parts, they were stacked 5 tall, while elsewhere there'd be a lone skull in the middle of a room and visitors could walk up to, all while exploring the gallery and taking in the other artworks that were on display. Explicitly designed to work in conjunction with pieces by other artists, Mass undoubtedly shows and makes us think of, in a morbid way, the things that truly connect each of us, no matter our background or where we're from, and how, beneath it, we're all exactly the same. Number 4. Mike Mozart, aka Mimo, Monopoly series. Mike Mozart has had an incredibly successful career for more than 30 years as an illustrator, having designed and drawn some of the world's most well-known cartoon characters and brand logos. But more recently, the artist, also referred to as Mimo, has become a controversial resin creator. Because of his success, he also helped to mentor up-and-coming artists too, and this has led to accusations of copying ideas, even when both were arguably as involved in creating the concept. His most famous work under his own name, for example, are a series of images that feature the Monopoly character in various situations. The problem, though, is that they're similar to ones done by another artist called Alec Monopoly, which has led to claims of plagiarism. It's been suggested, however, that they both worked together on some designs before, and there's no doubt that Mimo's versions are far better than his competitors. If Monopoly isn't your favorite game, though, then he also has made various other resin artworks featuring characters he's drawn in his professional capacity, including Scrooge McDuck from DuckTales. Number 3. Water Tower. While many artists may focus on the fantastical and unbelievable, it's arguably a much greater skill to see the beauty in everyday objects and turn them into a stunning piece. Rachel Whitread from London has made her career in creating sculptures and paintings of everyday settings, but in an almost ghostly way that turns the mundane into a feature in its own right. She was commissioned by the Public Art Fund in New York to create a new work for a public space, and she immediately got to work, scouring the city for inspiration. Not wanting to take up a street-level location because she preferred somewhere less obvious, she looked up and saw the vast expanse of rooftops and water towers, structures that New Yorkers rarely pay any attention to. Both familiar and remote, she saw the shape of the water towers as a modernist icon with a conical top and stumpy legs, and realized that she had her subject matter. After removing a cedar tower so it could be cast, she recreated it with resin and plaster, complete with the intricate grooves of the wood, and it was installed back in place of a rooftop in Soho, a neighborhood in Manhattan. Its transparent nature means that the water tower changes appearance throughout the day as the sun moves through the sky, and virtually disappears at night. Describing it as a jewel on the skyline of Manhattan, it typifies her interest in the transient nature of structures like these, and how there's beauty to be seen in everything, even if it was solely designed from a functional perspective. Number 2. Bruce Riley's Psychedelic Works. Chicago painter Bruce Riley is seen as one of the world's leading artists that use a combination of poured paint and dripped resin, and has found a way to encapsulate vivid, bold colors in pieces that hark back to the artistic heyday of the psychedelic 60s. Rather than starting out with a complete idea in mind, he chooses the colors he wants to work with and a vague outline of some of the shapes and patterns he wants to create, and then gets started. He pours the paint and steps back to see how it blends and forms before adding the resin to finalize the design. It's almost a hypnotizing process to watch in action, and Riley himself describes it as being psychologically risky. He never quite knows how things are going to turn out, and it's only in the midst of it does he get the sense of whether it'll be a success or not. Despite this seemingly random process, from the chaos he creates logic, and the swirls take on the shapes of cells and organisms, and it seems like there's been a structure all along. He's exhibited in galleries around the world, often creating bespoke works for each installation, and while all of them are planned and perfectly crafted, there'll often be mistakes left in just to ensure the element of artistic experimentation isn't lost. Number 1. Marine Creatures. Keng Lai formed a career at a graphic design company, but it was only after retiring that he found what many would argue was his true calling in life: resin artwork. The artist from Singapore held his first solo exhibition in 2015, and his pieces are so unique that he was soon known in the art community around the world. He had seen people working with resin and used it to create suspended animation pieces, and thought of a unique way of using this effect with his talents. He began creating a series of sculptures that featured painted faux aquatic animals with various everyday receptacles. The process of creating each one varies depending on the effect he's trying to achieve, but mainly he begins by choosing the receptacle and pouring in the initial layer of resin and letting it harden. He'll then create the object that will be fitted in, such as a fighting fish carved from a block of resin before being painted, and then delicately position it before pouring more clear resin around it. Some more complicated pieces, like the copy octopi, involve painting layers of clear gel to make the eyes and tentacles pop, methods that the artist himself admits were developed purely by accident and experimentation. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.